Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Three Pillars podcast with your host, Chriselda Barretto. Today, we'll be speaking on the second pillar of writing. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Chriselda. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Welcome to the Three Pillars. It's great having you on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, before we begin, could I ask you to introduce yourself, to tell our listeners a little bit about who you are?
Sure. I am a keynote speaker, and I'm author of the book How to Work with Jerks. And I published it a couple of years ago. It's almost 2 years now. And basically, what I do is I work with professionals who just want to get stuff done, and that means getting stuff done with people that they can't stand. And through all my workshops and my seminars, I've noticed that that's a really big deal. And so what I do is I talk a lot about emotional intelligence, which is the ability to manage your emotions and practice that awareness, so that way you can interact more effectively and socially with all types of people. And so what drove me to take on this profession is that I used to be a jerk, at least once or twice, growing up. And I've spoken to a lot of people who know what it's like to deal with jerks and how it really keeps people from being their very best. Some people, decide to quit their job, or they're just not as motivated or engaged in the workplace, and it has a real dollar figure, and um, I've spent, at least the last 8 years with my business, Tailored Training Solutions, working with professionals to help build the emotional intelligence, practice a corporate culture of emotional intelligence where people can manage their emotions and work more effectively with people so that people can just get stuff done.
Now, what was the idea behind the book? What actually made you think about writing a book on it? Because you're already giving seminars, but why write a book on it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So before I wrote the book, I was doing a lot of keynote speeches about emotional intelligence, so that way you can interact more effectively with all types of people. And it's not an easy thing to do. And so a lot of times when I was giving my seminars, people would walk up to me and they would tell me things that they wouldn't normally say out loud. They would say, I need help getting along with this kind of person who's like a micromanager, or, this person who's just a real narcissist. They're this, they're that, and I would listen to stories, from my wife, who would deal with all types of people, all different types of personalities. And I said, it's not about getting along effectively and all those kind of nice ways of saying what you really want to do, how to manage conflict. It's really about working with a jerk. Let's just call it out exactly what it is. It's dealing with that person that you just can't stand. And for some reason, you have to be able to work with them because you need them for something. And that usually thwarts people's progress. It keeps people from being their very best. It causes people to quit a certain corporation. It causes people to not be engaged. And so I said, you know what? Why don't I write a book that would really provide a roadmap for all types of professionals, so that way they know exactly what they need to do when they deal with a jerk or some kind of stressful situation that they really can't get out of. And so I came up with this book includes a lot of tips. I've got this 3-step process for dealing with conflict, and then I've got 5 traits that people can use at any given time, depending on the situation, to manage a situation or to manage conflict with a jerk.
When you talk about a jerk, we've got different kinds of jerks. So your book, does it actually focus on a single kind of jerk personality, or does it cater to many different kinds of jerks that you might find in the workplace? Because that makes it complicated then. And how did you manage to tailor it into your book?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I put this book together, I got feedback from a lot of people. I went to coffee shops, I talked to people on the street, I talked to a lot of friends, talked to a lot of colleagues. And I asked them, I said, how do you define a jerk? What's a jerk to you? And I had pages and pages and pages of definitions of jerks, right? Not
Mm.
including Web Dictionary definition. And I was like, I'm not going to come up with a book that's that long, that's going to be, no one's going to read a book that thick, right? So it forced me to really come up with a definition of really who a jerk is. right? It's not just the jerk that you have in your own mind, like, the narcissistic type of people, the micromanager, the people that throw you under the bus. All those may be true, but what it really comes down to is a jerk is someone who doesn't use social skills as a necessary job skill. And so when people in my seminars realize that eye-opening moment when we go through an activity, when people realize what a jerk truly is, people say, you know what? I think I've been a jerk. Or I think, you know what, I can relate to this. I think, I acted short towards someone, and I didn't interact effectively with someone on a couple of times. A lot of times when people say, think of the word jerk, they think about other people. Oh, this person's wronged me. This person's had an attitude. But a lot of times we're the ones who don't leverage our social skills in order to interact more effectively and manage conflict with people. So in the book, at the highest level, that's what it is. But some of the examples are examples that people can identify with, from the example that I talked about before, the people who like to throw you under the bus, the people who take credit for your work. Those are all examples, but everyone at least once may have at least some jerk tendencies that we don't realize because we're not using social skills, the ability to interact effectively, the ability to manage conflict, the ability to have that self-awareness as a necessary job skill. It's not something that's nice to have. It's a necessity because it's how you get stuff done. It's how you become more productive, how you become more engaged, and it's how you increase your bottom line revenues.
So, Eric, when you were writing this book, tell me what kind of process that you went through when you were writing different chapters of the book. Did you like schedule out a time in the day where you said, I'm going to dedicate 2 hours every day to getting stuff done for the book? Or was it something more spontaneous? You had ideas coming in, you noted it down. Just explain to me a bit about the process, the organization that you did to actually get the book completed.
Sure, sure. So this, like we were talking about before, this was a 2-year process, and it probably should have been a lot less than that. So my process was a little bit all over the place. First off, let me give credit to my wife. She was the one who inspired me to write this book, to write anything in general. She said, you should really begin writing articles or whatever. You've got a lot to say. And so I took her advice finally. And so when I started writing, I just started using some of the speeches that I already had, from some of my seminars, from my Toastmasters speeches. And I tried to figure out what they all had in common. And the common theme was really about emotional intelligence and how to deal with those tough situations with people that are really hard, that have different personalities and they have different titles and stuff like that. And I had so many examples of people who are extremely talented, who are, trying to climb the corporate ladder or just have a lot of experience. And they've had a lot of setbacks because they've had to deal with jerks and they don't know how to deal with them. So I started, using some of my speeches, and I started putting all my speeches that I had, not all of them, but most of them that applied, into the basis of my book. And at first I would just start building off of those speeches and building off this manuscript just whenever I could, right? So sometimes it would be once a week or something like that. And then I realized, I was like, I'm not getting anywhere with this. I need to really be committed to doing this. And so what I did was I committed myself to every morning when I get up from 6 to 8, 2 hours a day, nothing but writing every day. And so I committed myself to doing that. And finally, I had a draft manuscript. And then I realized, I was like, well, once I had the draft manuscript, I'm like, well, what do I do now? Right? I had no idea about the book business, about publishing a book or anything like that. And the last thing I wanted to do was to publish a book on Amazon and it go nowhere. I wanted it to mean something, and I had no idea how to go about doing that. So I talked to one of my mentors who convinced me, who encouraged me to get an author coach, someone who could help me with my manuscript, find out what to do and how to edit it. Because I was like, I don't even know if this book is any good. No one really looked at it. And so once I got an author coach, it changed the whole game. My original manuscript completely did a 180. And it turned into something a little bit more comprehensive, more meaningful, more organized. And I had the support of someone who was able to guide me through the process, let me know what steps I needed to take, and then she was actually helping me publish the book too. So she put me in the right contact. So at first I was going just blind. I didn't know I had no process. I had nothing. But it really paid tremendous dividends for me to get a professional, an author coach, to really help guide me through the process. And once she did that, it just really set things off. It really turned things around, and it really made me realize the things that I needed to do in order to publish this book, which was tremendous editing, which was getting a lot of people's feedback. I mean, let's be real. I mean, it's tough to have someone, especially if you're a first-time writer, it's really intimidating to have someone read your work, read what you wrote. You know, I had no confidence. I'm like, I'm not good at this. I can't. And my author coach said, well, you got to get used to people reading your stuff if you want to publish something. And so I said, yeah, you're right. I guess so. And so I slowly but surely I started buying into that. And then I developed more confidence, and I knew I had a message. And then the more and more I was able to do that, I was able to leverage that during my speaking engagements by talking more about my book. And I got a lot more excitement out of that. So the process was all over the place in the beginning. And then once I got an author coach, she really helped provide the structure that I needed in order to produce a book that was going to add tremendous value to a lot of people.
And how did you manage to publish the book then? Did you actually work with a traditional publisher?
Yes, so once I did my original manuscript, I thought about self-publishing, going through Amazon, and I was like, that's probably not going to be the best method because I really don't know how to market it or anything. And then I said, well, I can go the traditional publishing route, but then, I'd have to, it wasn't a certainty that someone's going to pick up my book, and then the royalties was also going to be, another issue. So it wasn't going to be certain that a traditional publisher was going to pick up my book as well. So I think I found like a happy medium. I went with a smaller publishing firm called Silvertree Publishing, and I had a lot more say in how I wanted the book published, and the royalties were definitely fairer than the traditional publishing route, and I had a lot more flexibility as well. So I went with a smaller publishing firm that was able to bring my book to life, but also gave me the latitude and the flexibility to actually to have a say in the process, unlike some of the other experiences that I've heard about when you go to other ways to publish the book.
Now, your title of the book, How to Work with Jerks, Getting Stuff Done with People You Can't Stand, is very catchy. How did you come up with the title of the book?
That was the hardest thing I ever had to do. So if you'll just indulge me for a minute. So the original title was something like Using Emotional Intelligence in the Millennial Work Environment, or something like that. It was like the worst, most boring title, the most lengthy title that you can ever imagine. And my author coach was challenging me to come up with something different that was more catchy, that still had the essence of what I was trying to say. And so I started, I had a couple of people take a look at my book, take a look at my manuscript. And so when I was explaining it to them, I was like, it's about, a lot of times people they just can't get along with certain people in the workplace, right? It's like how to work with those kind of people, those idiots, those people, those blankety blanks. And I said, those jerks. I said, it's how to work with jerks. And so someone said, I love that title. Yeah, I can get to it. And once I started talking about it, it resonated with people. People were like, yeah, it's not about how to play nice in the sandbox. It's not about how to get along with people. No, say it what it really is. It's about how to get along with that jerk, that person, a jerk. So I think people really appreciated that I was just saying it for what it was, and I wasn't trying to just come up with something catchy. I was really trying to come up with something that resonated. In the title, from everything I hear about when, you're putting a book together, the title is probably one of the most important things to come up with because, whether you're an avid reader or not, a lot of people are going to be drawn to reading your book based on the title. And so it was the hardest thing I ever had to do. It took me so long, so many months to come up with something, so many different focus groups, trial and error. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do. But I'm really happy with the title because every time I talk about it, and in my seminars, I get tons of laughs because people know what it's like to work with a jerk and they need help with it, So, yeah, and then the subtitle, How to Get Stuff Done with People You Can't Stand, my publisher definitely helped me out with that because if you look at the book cover, instead of stuff, it's something else. It's the other S word. And so my publisher actually crossed it out and put in stuff. So it just adds to the just no nonsense, just, holding no punches, just come out and just say exactly what it is to the best that you can, and just give people content that they can use to help them get through their everyday stuff.
Another thing, the content of your book is quite complex. You're talking about human emotions and emotional intelligence. You're even talking about people that are jerks, that people might actually, when they read your book, they're going to think, oh, actually, that's me, right? I'm that jerk. How did you manage to simplify the information that you were giving in your book to make it more relatable to the reader?
Yeah. So what I did was, in the beginning, I just came out and I set the tone by providing my own experiences about how I became a jerk. And that experience, my experience when I talk about how I, went to the workplace, graduated from college and just went to the workplace and really, really rubbed everyone the wrong way, that helped people understand that anyone can be a jerk, but it's okay. It's okay. And I provided the real examples of, I take people on a course from, when I graduated to what exactly it was like in the workplace and how I suffered and how I failed and almost lost my job because I was a jerk. And when I layered that with some facts about how interpersonal skills and lack of emotional intelligence, how that not only helps people act like jerks, but it provides a dollar figure. It resonates to a real dollar figure that it can cost companies billions of dollars by just not even leveraging that emotional intelligence. People resonate with it right away. They understand if you're a business professional, if you're a leader, you say to yourself, that's it. How can I get the most out of my employees? They think, okay, well, if we use more emotional intelligence, if people were able to manage their emotions more and deal with these situations a little bit more, they're more willing to stay because they know how to deal with the situation. They'll be more engaged, and I can help them be more successful, and in turn, it'll help the company become more successful. So because I provided my own self-deprecating stories and I layered it with true facts, and people understand that, people can understand that, that's me. I've been through those situations. And when I provide the other examples of people that I've talked to, my own clients and stuff, people understand that's them. But I think the eye-opening thing is that people go into reading this book expecting that they're going to hear about their boss, or they expect to hear about, their colleague who they have to work with who's a jerk. Not only do they hear that, though, they realize that they may have had some jerk tendencies. They may have, provided some knee-jerk reaction or responded in a situation that wasn't helpful, and it caused a lot of trouble along the way. So the eye-opening thing is that they realize that they've become jerks as well. So because the title, how you define a jerk, someone who doesn't use social skills as a necessary job skill, people understand that, it's not just that micromanager. It's not just that narcissist. At the end of the day, these people have demonstrated the inability to use social skills. So that's how I tried to make it that plain for people to understand.
Okay. I also read somewhere that they call you the connector. What's the story behind that now?
Yeah, so I think a couple of years ago, I was giving a keynote speech to a corporation, and I guess some of the speeches, the keynotes that they've had before, it was just someone just talking. That was it. They got nothing out of it. They weren't engaged at all. But then when I came in and I delivered my speech, I was engaged with the audience through and through. I had people laughing. People were asking questions. People, were able to provide feedback of their own insight. So it was a good kind of dialogue. And the stories that I tell and that I told since then, it resonated with them. So a lot of the feedback was like, I thought you were actually speaking to me, and then when I heard from the senior staff, the vice president said, I've never seen a group of people that engaged in a talk. It's like, you really connected with these people. You are the connector. And so that, and then that kind of really, not only was I known to that group as a connector, and I just kept coming back and back each year after that, delivering keynotes for them as a connector. That translated into other speaking events where people realized, they said, oh, I heard you were the connector. For those people who are in the speaking business, the last thing that people want to listen to is someone who's just going to talk to someone, right? And so instead of that, I talk with them. And so that's why I've been known as a connector, because I talk about stories that people can relate to. And my main goal is to help them get through and solve their problems. It's not just to talk. So I think that's part of the reason why I was known as a connector, and I still am.
Could you share with us some tips to building stronger relationships in the workplace?
Yeah, I gladly. So I have this 3-step process for dealing with jerks and any kind of conflict that you're involved in. And it's called the AAA method, and it stands for assess, analyze, act. So assess is step 1, analyze is step 2, and act is step 3. So when you are in step 1, when you're in conflict, when you're dealing with a jerk, maybe you don't like the response you received, or maybe you're about to get in conflict with someone, or maybe the situation is getting real sticky. Before you do anything, you want to at first assess the situation, meaning you want to assess what you're feeling at that moment, because your body's telling you certain things. And if you're not in tune with that, you're going to ignore those body signals. So a lot of times when we're stressed out, when we're in conflict, our body tells us certain things. For example, our heart may beat fast, our palms may get sweaty, our mouth might get dry, we might just shut down physically, or we might just ignore people. We have to really identify, understand what those body signals are telling us. And once you're able to do that, then you can go to step 2 and analyze. You want to analyze the situation. What's causing my body to act like this? Why? What are the triggers? What's causing my body to respond in a certain way? Why is my body shutting down? Why are my palms sweaty? Oh, okay, well, maybe I was stuck in traffic, and now when I got to work, I got all this stuff going on and I haven't gotten a chance to settle in. And now I have to get ready for this meeting that's in 30 minutes and I'm not prepared for it, right? So that's step 2. So once you're able to understand what your body's telling you, then you could understand the situation that's causing that to happen. And then once you have that awareness, then you can go to step 3. And step 3 causes you to figure out what the best response is to that specific situation, whether you're in conflict with someone or whether you're in another stressful situation and you need to come up with a response. How many times, Chriselda, let's be real, how many times have we just gone to step 3 when we're in a difficult situation? When we're caught in traffic or someone cuts us off, the first thing we do is act, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just respond. We may cut someone out. We may flip someone off. Or if someone acts short with you in the workplace or gives you an attitude, we may roll our eyes at that person or do whatever it is that might not be the best situation, right? And makes the situation worse. So before we act, we need to first assess the situation and then analyze it. So this 3-step process is something that's real quick and simple that helps people in any situation, because with all the content that's in the book, yes, it's all helpful, but if you need to take something away, it's that 3-step process, because you can carry that with you for whatever situation. So the assess, analyze, act method, that 3-step process, that's what's going to help you work better with a jerk and deal with any stressful situation that comes your way.
Very good advice. I'm going to follow that. I'm going to try. Okay.
It's hard. It's
It
hard.
is
I'll be
getting
real with
used
you.
to it.
Yeah. You just got to keep practicing it. That's the only thing. That's the only way it works.
Okay. Are you working on a second book then? Are we looking forward to another book coming out soon? What are you doing currently?
Yes, I am. So I am working on another book. It's going to be a spinoff of How to Work with Jerks. I'm still playing around with the title, but it's going to be to this effect as how to promote a jerk-free environment. So basically, this is going to be more about changing the culture, the mindset of an organization to work jerk-free. How to Work with Jerks helps individuals get along and work more effectively with their current situation. But this is going to be more geared towards the organizational culture, because a lot of times, in order to really spark change, you really have to make a constant effort, investment in changing the culture. And so I realize that that's something that once you can change a culture, you can get a lot more support from people along the way, from executives and other leadership, to really promote a more jerk-free environment.
Yeah. Good. I'm looking forward to that. I think it'll be really interesting. Um, if I say healing through creativity, does that mean anything to you?
Yeah, yeah, it does. I saw that I think the other day. I think it's true, and that's what I discovered about writing. I went through some challenging moments in the workplace, and in some of my talks I talk about, one of the worst situations that ever happened to me when I, had to work with a jerk, and I know what it's like to feel hopeless and helpless. And once I was able to actually write it down and write those situations down, it really made me own my emotions, own my feelings, and I realized that it's something that can help other people with whatever situation that they're going through. Because a lot of times it's hard to just take what we're feeling in our own heads and put it down on paper. But to me, it's the best healing method that I've found, that I discovered through writing. And if it's not just through my book, it's writing my articles as well. And so now I think that I'm a better person now for going through all those situations. And it's another sign that how your mess that you've dealt with can become a message by helping others go through those situations. So when I was going through it, when I dealt with a jerk and when I became a jerk, that caused me to write those things down, those feelings down, and it helped me really find solutions. And it's hard to say that I am a creative writer, and yes, I guess I would say that I am, but that inspires me for my content. My turning my
Mm.
mess into a message.
That's nice, turning your mess into a message. That's nice. Very poetic. Have you, but you're working on your second book now. Have you had moments where you kind of like shut down, or you go through a kind of a writing block where you can't write anymore, or you don't know how to go ahead, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that is really tough. So other people have asked me this before too, and I'm not sure how people feel about what I'm going to say, but when I run into writer's block or when I get frustrated because I don't know what to say next or how to elaborate on something else, the thing that I've learned that works for me is to just put something on the paper, even if it doesn't make any sense, or even if you're gonna delete it and write it over again. The more and more you put something down on a piece of paper or you type something out, that's one step to actually getting your thoughts down. And so sometimes what I do is I will type and I'll just type away. And it may not make much sense. It's just thoughts on something. And then once I'm done typing, I'll leave it alone for like 15 minutes and I'll come right back to it and I'll read it. And then that gives me more insight into other things that I want to talk about. When I'm writing articles, when I'm trying to come up with my monthly articles, sometimes, that can become a little bit more difficult. So sometimes I try to figure out like what the theme of the month is, what's trending, and I try to tie in my theme of working with jerks into something that's relatable to to the audience. So if I could sum it up, I would say, when you do encounter writer's block, when you do have difficulty figuring out like what next to write, the best thing I can come up with that's worked for me is to just whatever you have on your mind, whatever you have going on, just write it out. Just write it out. Even if you're saying that you have difficulty writing, I'm having difficulty writing because I'm trying to solve this problem, and this problem makes it difficult because blah blah blah. Whatever you're writing, just write it out, and then you can go back and revisit it, and other things come to mind. I would say the difficult thing is oftentimes the best ideas come when I'm not in a position to write. So if I'm in the shower, or if I'm driving and stuff, I try my best to focus on the road. So if I do come up with an idea, it's like I either have to pull over or try to program my phone to record whatever's coming out. So that's probably the most difficult part. But I would say in general, just keep writing. Just keep writing.
Mm. And how do you keep your work creative? How do you get the fun aspect into it when you write? Is that difficult, or it just comes because you are a very, jovial personality? How do you do that?
Well, for me, I think you have to love what you do first. The moment that it becomes a chore, the moment that it becomes a burden for you to write something, then you probably need to take a step away and realize why you're writing in the first place. For me, when I started my speaking career, I did it because I had a passion for it. I loved it. And I wanted to get more speaking engagement. And I knew that I needed another way, and my wife convinced me I needed another platform to get my message out. And so even though I didn't see myself as a writer, once I was able to put thoughts down and I was interested in helping people because it aligned with my ultimate vision of speaking, I said, it's the same thing except I'm just writing. And so I had an interest from it right away. And so it also helps that I get tremendous stories from being a family man and watching that my two kids run around the house and having my patience tested with them. It helps me come up with other stories. And, my wife putting up with me and the kids helped me come up with even more stories about what I go through. And, it's just, I love the topic. It's just working with jerks is something that we have to do every day. And it's a fun topic for me. So I haven't gotten bored of it yet. I don't plan on it at all. But I think the moment that happens, that it feels like a burden, it feels like it's overwhelming. It feels more like a chore, then it's time to revisit, why you started doing it in the first place.
Okay. What do you wish you had known when you first started out?
I wish I had known my passions from the beginning. When I started working, I was working for a place for, almost 2 decades, and maybe it was just a steady job. Maybe it was just a place that I didn't have to think much, that, provided my security, the benefits and everything, but it kept me comfortable. And I hate to say I wasted because it's all a learning experience, but I invested a lot of time at this job. And I just wish that when I was in college, if I would have spent more time thinking about what kind of impact I really wanted, maybe I would have arrived at this same position maybe several years ago. But things happen for a reason. In hindsight is 2020, and your experiences sometimes drive you to find your passion. I guess I wish I knew more about entrepreneurship and writing, the value of writing, when I was in my 20s. That would be the one thing.
But then you wouldn't have had your experiences, right?
True, that's true. It's like you
Yeah.
can't have it both ways. I wouldn't have had my experiences, but I guess those experiences are what drove me to be the person who I am today as well.
Yeah.
But it did help me learn, though, that for my kids growing up, that, when I grew up with my parents, they're from the baby boomer generation, I learned from them that it's important to have a job, it's important to provide for your family, it's important to be stable, right? And
Mm.
I didn't learn much about taking risks and finding things that you're not only good at, but you're passionate about. And so that's what I want to convey to my kids. Yes, I do want them to have a great education. Yes, I want them to be successful. But that kind of success can mean anything. And so I want to open their eyes about all the opportunities that they can have available and afforded to them if they just embrace all types of things. You don't have to be successful just by going to college and getting a full-time job. You can be successful by discovering your passion and doing the things that you really want. So that's what I really want to convey to my kids.
And what are you curious about right now?
Right now, I am curious about a couple of things. I am curious about the future. I'm curious about what's going on with the job market. Right now, automation is taking over. And I'm curious about how leaders are going to accommodate for the automation, because even automation can't replace everything. One of the things that automation can't replace right now are social skills. And there are jobs that are in high demand for social skills, a lot of technical jobs. And so I'm curious about the plan for companies who have not factored in the importance of social skills and are relying on automation to take over and to supplement some of the human jobs. I think it's going to be an eye-opening experience that social skills cannot be replaced, and it's going to be the bridge to help people get stuff done regardless of where the market is going.
That'd be a good book as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think I'm gonna add some of those features into my into my book.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. And maybe something you failed at. I mean, that's horrible. I don't even want to think about it, but have you failed at something?
Oh my goodness! Before I tell you the story, let me just, if you will, just let me share my mindset about failing. I read this book by Robert Kiyosaki not too long ago, and one of the things that stood out was that you need to fail early and often. And so that really changed my mindset about failing. And at first, my mindset about failing was being embarrassed, feeling not good enough, feeling humiliated. That was my mindset. And I'll share one of the things I failed at. When I graduated from college, all my life up until a certain point, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And so when I graduated from college, I applied for my LSAT. Those are the standardized tests to get into law school, and I failed miserably. I failed. I did so badly on my LSATs that I didn't get into any job, school, any law school that I applied to. I mean, I failed. I got rejected from, I think, over 20 schools, and I was embarrassed and I felt humiliated. And just imagine, you gear up for something, you spend all your life thinking you're supposed to be this one thing, and it doesn't happen. It forced me, after being humiliated, and I had to take my ego aside and figure out, like, well, what happened? If this was what you thought you were supposed to be, you should have been it, but why not? And I went through the whole process of what happened, and I never put in the work to study. I didn't take it seriously at all. And then I discovered, I said, this really wasn't what I wanted in the first place. I didn't really want to go back to school. I didn't want to go to law school, because if I did, I would have studied. I would have put in the work, and I would have taken it more seriously. And I still have all those rejection notices, because it just keeps things in perspective for me that you're going to fail at things. You're going to fail in life, and you need to embrace those failures, because it is a learning experience. But like I said before, being able to fail, that's your first step to becoming successful, because you need to go through it. You need to go through that failure. And so I've changed my mindset, even when speaking engagements don't go my way, if I don't get that speaking engagement, you can look at it as a missed opportunity, as a failed opportunity, but it's a great opportunity to go to the next one, to learn what I could have done differently. So that's how I look at failure. I think that's what how everyone should look at failure. But it's not easy to do. It's not easy to do. It's easier said than done. But I think the best way that it can resonate with people, and which is why I talk about it in my stories, where I talk about my own personal failures, is to lead off with that. So that way people understand that failing, when you fail, that's when you need emotional intelligence the most. You need to be able to be in tune with your emotions, figure out what you're feeling, why you feel like this when you fail, because then that gets you one step closer to turning things around and succeeding. Sometimes when people fail, some people say, well, why bother? It didn't work out the last time. I just, what's the use? But that's when emotional intelligence comes in, because then once you're able to manage your emotions, you can get right back on and try again. So failing's a great thing. You just got to keep going with it until you succeed.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. So how do you see the future?
I see the future as bright and optimistic. I plan on it, not only just watching my kids grow. I love spending my free time with them, but I do want to expand my speaking business. I'm looking forward to working with more professionals, with more organizations. I'm actually coming up with an online training course to help people work better with jerks. So I'm in the process of working on that. I'm excited about it. And I just want to be able to create the lifestyle that and create the opportunities that my family deserves. So I'm very excited. I'm very optimistic about the future.
And what advice would you give somebody that wants to pursue a career similar to yours?
I would say don't play it safe. I would say pursue your dreams immediately. And in order to pursue your dreams immediately, like, you have to be able to understand the process. You need to understand how the game is played. So, for example, when I first drafted my manuscript, right, I was just I didn't know what I was doing. All I was doing was just writing a manuscript. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know if I was doing it right. And so in order for me to understand the writing process and how it's played, I had to get a coach. I had to get a coach. I had to read books. I had to understand like what is needed. And that helped me be crystal clear on what my vision is, what the purpose of my book was. So in order to do those things, you got to understand the process. You got to get a mentor. You got to get a coach. You got to read books. You know, I hate to sound cliche, but it's just so darn true. You got to understand the process. You got to understand how the game is played, because that's the only way you're going to be able to really be successful. You got to understand how the game is played, and you gotta be very specific about what it is that you want and why you're doing it.
Hmm. And can you tell us some of the books that you read or the writers that have influenced your writing journey then?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I want to give a shout out to my author coach, my writing coach, Kathy Fayok.
Hmm.
She is the author of Book More Business, Some More Books and Book More Business. Absolutely love that book. But lately, especially this year in 2020, I've been reading a lot of self-help books. I've been reading books, fascinating book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. And it's by, I think, Mark Manson. And it really challenges you to put things in perspective about what things you should really give an F about versus things that don't. And sometimes we get caught up in some of the things that really aren't as important as other things. And as a result, we put a lot of stress on ourselves, a lot of tedious time when it should be focused more on more productive things. So that right there, I think, is my favorite book that I've read so far. And also The Millionaire Next Door. I just finished reading that book just the other day. It's an incredible book to help people who are really trying to be successful. And I guess the last one is Do It Now. It's a speaking book by David Newman. Very good book. I just finished reading actually the other day. My goal is to read 52 books this year, which is far more than I've ever read in my, at any given time. So because I spend a lot of time on the road, I do a lot of audiobooks. So, I'm a real big fan of that. But I really love the self-help books, though.
Mm. And how do you keep yourself motivated then? Is it by reading these books or do you have other means?
Yeah, well, it's a variety of things. So those self-help books that I read, that definitely keeps me motivated every single day. And it's really hard to keep motivated every day when you've got so many things, so many hats that you're wearing, so many things that you got to juggle, and the failures that come with it as well. It can be hard to be motivated. But one of the things I do to help me out is, in addition to these self-help books like The Millionaire Next Door and some of those other books, I have a bullet journal. And this bullet journal, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it forces me to write down all of my daily activities, my weekly activities, my monthly activities, my goals, my vision, and every day I look at it. And that forces me to stay focused on everything that I need to do that specific day. If I don't get to it, then I have to get to it the next day, but I have to write it down. So it's old school. It's an actual journal. I don't use my phone or use anything like that. I use my bullet journal. And that forces me to prioritize, stay focused, and every time I'm able to cross something off that list, I know that I'm one step closer to fulfilling all of my dreams and all of my passions. So that's definitely a good thing, because it's so easy to stay unmotivated, or something doesn't go your way. Sometimes we can sit around and sulk, but I would lose focus. I would say, oh, well, where was I going with that? Or what did I need to do? Once I pick up that bullet journal, I look at what I need to get through for the day, and I just work on it. And that just keeps me focused.
In fact, I was speaking to another guest yesterday, and she was telling me that she has another way of keeping herself motivated, and she works with positive affirmations. So she gets up in the
Yes,
morning, and the first thing she does is she says, like, she invents a sentence, but something that's going to positively motivate her. And I thought that was really nice, something that you wouldn't be able to do, but you actually say just the opposite of it. So, like, if you can't write, you get up and say, no, today I'm going to be the best writer I want to be, or, something like that, which
yes,
is also kind of, it's kind of mind over matter, right? You
yes.
decide what you want your day, or what you want the future to hold for you by your thoughts, really.
Yes, yes, and I'm actually glad you mentioned that too, because I actually do the same thing. I have a daily affirmation. It's the same affirmation that I speak daily, And anytime I get stressed out or, something doesn't go my way, I go right back to it. And I must read this affirmation at least 3 to 5 times a day. Definitely at least once.
What was one that you used today?
It's called, I got it from Think and Grow Rich. And I won't say the whole thing, but it's to the effect of, by June 30th, 2027, I will have $1 million in my possession, which will come to me in various forms from time to time. And in return for that money, I will deliver the best services possible by providing professional development to all different types of professionals. And I say that every single day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, every single day.
Amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Well, you're going to get there. 2027 is pretty long, huh? You've got like 7 years more.
Yeah. I figured, I said, let me give myself enough time, and then
Yeah.
I'll give myself enough time to beat that goal.
That's good. Any more information that you'd like to share with us, Eric?
Let's see. Well, look out for my online course that's coming up. It's going to be How to Work with Jerks. And I'm also coming up with my second book as well, to the effect of how to promote a jerk-free environment. And just don't stop living your dreams. Just keep plugging forward,
That's lovely. That's nice advice there. And then my last question to you, where can our listeners contact you or how can they find your book?
Sure. So they can find my book, How to Work with Jerks, on Amazon. All you got to do is just do a search for How to Work with Jerks. But you can also find me on LinkedIn under the name of Eric Williamson. You can also find my website at tailoredtrainingsolutions.com as well. I'm always on social media, so usually LinkedIn and Instagram, so people can find me in all those ways.
Great. I'll put all the links to your information in the description box of this episode as well, so they can click on there and get to you as well. Okay?
Great.
Eric, it has been really good, really nice chatting with you. And I would like to have you on my next series that I'm going to be doing on self-help, because I'm presuming with all the knowledge that you have on self-help and dealing with the workplace and things, you'd be a good addition to the show as well. So I'm already inviting you there.
Awesome. I look forward to that. Thank you very much. It was great talking to you, Chriselda. I'm so glad we got connected. This was a lot of fun. I mean, you really made this really easy going, and, I can't wait to listen to this.
Thanks for coming on the show, Eric, and hope to speak with you very soon. Thanks, Eric, and bye.
Thank you so much, Chriselda. I look forward to it. You have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye, Eric.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on The 3 Pillars. See you next week and make it awesome.